I realized I have way too many cases, and so the focus became closing out finishing out effectively as many cases as possible, so that I could really give effective care to the cases I still have open. And then I realized I can't answer my own phone, and I was very, very strongly encouraged to be like, no, you need to hire someone. You need to hire someone. And I ended up a former client. Also, we worked on her divorce. She was like, we ended up playing in the same pool league, and she was talking to me about how she needed a job, and I was like, yeah, I gotta hire an assistant. And she was like, I need a job, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so we talked about it. I was like, this is what we need, and she was like, well, my experience is in sales. I was like, hey.
This is where you're talking about hiring former clients. This is where the editor flashes the picture of the Brenda.
1, 2, 3, go.
Jennifer Hardy, HAAR.
Believe it or not,
Welcome to the Lawyer Dana Show.
the Lawyer Dana podcast.
Wow, we have a lot to talk about.
And we're going to do it right after this.
Welcome to the Lawyer Dana podcast.
So we'll start with an introduction. Denise Villarreal, and from the Villarreal law firm, or is it the Denise Villarreal?
D.Y. Villarreal law firm. It's a very common last name, so it was
LawyerDenise.com. And Lawyer Dana, Lawyer Denise. And Denise is one of the members of our coaching program who you basically are starting from scratch with a family law firm in Texas after moving from Florida. Tell us some of your story.
Okay, graduated from the, you guys probably should have given me a swirly chair. So I graduated from the University of Texas with an accounting degree, and went to work for a law firm. I got the job kind of as a side gig. I was the filing clerk, covering for the filing clerk that was going for annual guard duty. And so I was just covering for him for 2 weeks, and then they were going to fire him. They were going to fire him before he went for guard leave, and then they were like, well, we can't fire him while he's going for guard leave. And so I didn't know any of that. But then he'd been back a couple of weeks, and they called me, and they were like, how would you feel about taking the job permanently? And I was like, okay, I can do that part-time. And then one of their legal assistants decided to go back to grad school, and they said, hey, how do you feel about being a legal assistant? And I was like, okay, I can do that. And the first job I got was, we need you to draft a notice of intent to sue under the Clean Water Act. And I was like, none of that made any sense to me. So I went and researched it, and I wrote a letter, and he was like, well, all I really needed was like the outline of the shell of who we address it to and all that. But and apparently he made a couple of edits and then sent it off, and that's kind of how it all started. And then
that's how I like to get them. Like, wow, you did the whole letter for me? Perfect.
And then I worked with them, and it was an administrative law firm in Austin, and they focus almost exclusively on working with the TCEQ and the State Office of Administrative Hearings and dealing with environmental issues. Anyway, it was really illuminating to kind of see how the office worked and how attorneys work. And I had actually been fighting the idea of being an attorney since high school. I had people my entire life going, you'd be a great attorney. I was like, no, I'm going to be an astronaut. And then I was like, no, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I shadowed my dad and talked to my parents, and they're like, medicine's changing, and if you want to be an employee, then yes, be a doctor. But and the only way to really change that is to be a lawyer, and then help regulate the medical profession. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do that, but lawyers are bad. And I was like, I can't do this. And so then, of course, I got these jobs right out of undergrad. And I was like, well, maybe lawyers aren't bad. Maybe it's just the lawyers that we've
Not
encountered.
All lawyers. Only bad lawyers are bad.
And so my mom was like, well, why don't you just take the LSAT? I was like, I'm not going to take the LSAT. I'm not going to law school. Well, just take the LSAT and see how you do. So I took the LSAT. And then somewhere in there, I studied abroad in Scotland, met my ex-husband, and then we got married.
Was he Scottish?
Yep.
Okay.
What?
I thought I was making a joke.
Yeah. No, yeah, I married a Scotsman, and
It's funny because it's true.
and then people always ask me, well, you never changed your name. I was like, well, I didn't change my name because we got married right after I'd graduated from UT, and there was this possibility of either going to medical school or law school, and I was like, my degree is in my maiden name. I don't want to mess everything up and have problems with applying in my married name. So the plan was apply, get accepted, graduate, then change my name. And so that my legal name would be my married name, but my professional name would match my credentials. And but then I got divorced in law school, so I never had to change my name. So that worked out.
Wait. You mean the process of going through law school?
Resulted in a divorce.
Did that result in you having to get a divorce? What a surprise.
I know, I became a statistic. But anyway, so my mom.
A sad, tragic surprise.
But yeah, so I took the LSAT, and I did pretty well. And my mom was like, well, just apply, just see who accepts you. And at some point in my life, I'm going to look back and I'll be like, I'm so grateful that my mother pushed me. But part of it, I'm still like, I'm a lawyer because of my mother. But
you did this to me.
On the bad days, that's definitely how it feels. But I ended up getting accepted and offered a full scholarship to Ave Maria School of Law in Florida.
Is that where you went?
That's where I ended up
Perfect.
going. And
if you're going to go to law school, go to the best school that you can go to for free.
Yeah.
If you have a choice of free schools, then pick the quote unquote best one, right? But like if one costs like $3 and another one is free, go to the free one. It's not worth the additional $3.
That's kind of what I figured. But also, grew up in a Catholic family. My little sister and my older sister both went to Catholic school when they were really little, and I was the only one that had escaped that fate, for better or worse. And I was like, you know what? I never went to Catholic school. I think I'd like to try it. And so we made the cover of U.S. News and World Report as the most devout law school. We had a chaplain on campus and daily mass. And but anyway, so I went through and I was like, after my experience with the law firm in Austin, I was like, I'm going to be an administrative lawyer. I really like what they do, and it feels like more accessible to people, and it feels like you don't really have bad lawyers in administrative law. And so I went.
Pan out for you?
No, it didn't. I actually had a professor get mad at me when I told him I wasn't planning on going into litigation or didn't really want to be in the courtroom. And
because he knew you, or because like he just felt that way about those type of attorneys?
No, well, so I did trial advocacy in law school, and I guess I did okay. But then I did the moot court trial competition, and he was one of the judges, and I managed to get the only directed verdict up to that time that they'd ever awarded during that competition.
Wow.
And I mean, he had to rescind it immediately because we had to finish the competition, but it was deserved, and he said so. And he was like, and he asked me, so what kind of law are you intending to practice? I was like, I'm really leaning towards administrative law, and I really like the idea of working with administrative agencies because it's not something that people really are aware of. The fact that we've got this fourth branch of government, everybody has to interact with them. I feel like it's going to be the most useful. And he was like, so you're not going to practice in a courtroom? And it was like I was suddenly getting a lecture about how you have this skill set.
How dare
and that
you?
is putting your light under a bushel, and just like he's like, if I talk to you in 5 years and you have not been in a courtroom, he was like, we're gonna have words. Essentially, is what it came down to. I was like,
it's actually a gift.
It was. That's what I learned. Was not
That's
all
the parable
lawyers
of the talents.
go to
Like
court.
you're burying your talent. Don't.
And it was like we learned pretty early on, as most people don't realize, that the majority of lawyers don't practice, or don't practice in a courtroom, or don't practice in private practice. They either go into industry, or they have a job that's not working with clients, or they're in-house counsel, and a surprisingly small percentage actually see clients and go into court. And I didn't know that either. I thought everyone was Atticus Finch. Once I realized there were good lawyers. Prior to that, they were other lawyers in my head. But yeah, so then I graduated from law school in Ave. Nobody was hiring in Southwest Florida. I took the bar, passed the bar. Was very proud of that pass because my school's bar pass rate at that time was like 50%. So I was very proud of that pass. And but anyway, tried to get a job there in Southwest Florida. Nobody was hiring Ave grads. They would take us as interns for free labor, but they wouldn't hire us after. Wow. And so a bunch of us just started hanging out our own shingle. One of the gentlemen that did it a couple of years ahead of us, one of his first big cases was foreclosing on Bank of America. And so it was pretty impressive. And so that kind of, I think, opened the door for a lot of us to say, we can do this too. And up until then, Collier County in Southwest Florida had been a very, I guess, kind of a closed boutique law type community, and all the lawyers kind of knew each other. At least it seemed that way. And so when we come out and we're trying to get jobs and they're not hiring, and then we start our own practice and we're doing things the way we've been taught, not the way it's kind of expected to be practiced. I got called avant-garde, and I was like, well, here's a thought. If you don't like the rules I'm playing by, because they're the ones that are written down, maybe you should have hired us and taught us the way you think law should be practiced in Southwest Florida. But I ended up coming home.
What were some of the things?
The fact that I filed a motion for rehearing and didn't tell opposing counsel that I was going to be doing it. I don't know. There was nothing that required me to send him an email saying I'm going to be filing a motion for rehearing on this order.
And you had to give them a copy of it when you filed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were mad that you didn't tell them.
Well, it was rude, and this was an avant-garde style of practice. And the thing is,
How is that avant-garde?
It was never said to my face. I found that out later, but.
Interesting.
Well, I think it was because my client really wanted this. He really wanted the argument to be made about this particular issue, even if it meant that he could be considered for contempt and jail time again. And so I don't think that's avant-garde. I think that it's risky, but my client understood the risks and was really pushing for it because he felt the judge made the wrong decision. And honestly, looking at the facts, I thought the judge did as well. But I was like, the worst she can do is put you in jail. And he was like, I'm ready to go. And I was like, okay. Are you sure? That.
Can I videotape you saying that? And can I get your signature
right
here, notarize that it's actually you?
Right. Well, so anyway, I practiced. I ended up falling into construction law while I was there. I really enjoyed it. I worked with contractors and subcontractors. I did 2 foreclosures. So mostly property law, and then my grandparents started getting sick, and my parents both run their own business, and we're kind of feeling kind of the government regulation. My dad's a doctor, my mom's a pharmacist, and so I was like, you know what, I'm not really doing them any good here. I could help better if I went home. Went home, didn't have a license yet, so I was doing accounting in Texas, and then I was like, if I just hold out until the 5th year, if I just hold out to the 5th year while I keep my clients in Texas, I can just wait in. And I couldn't wait that long, so I ended up taking the bar, and I kept looking at it, like I'm halfway through studying for the bar, I'm like, what am I doing to myself? It was like a second bar. And so passed the Texas bar, and then about 6 months later, I was just like, I don't want to start all over again. I don't want to start like having to go find clients. I don't want to learn how to practice law in Texas and understand all the nuances again on my own without any support or mentors. And so I started looking for jobs, and it was just very difficult to find anything in kind of the Austin area. And so given that I had no experience in Texas, and so I started making cold calls looking for people that were doing pro bono work for veterans, because that was an area of law. I was like, you know what, even no matter what else I do, I would love to give back to the veteran community. And so I ended up getting an appointment with an attorney, and he ended up being a former judge who had started the Veterans Court program in Hays County. And what I thought was just a consult on how we can help each other serve veterans turned into a job interview, ended up working for this law firm. It was a strange setup. I was a contract attorney, but I was working under the name of the firm, but I ran my own practice in that firm, and it was but then all the money, it was all handled by the main office. And so that was when I first started taking family law cases. And so that was 2019. So I took my first family law case. Incidentally, I still have that case.
The first case always takes forever.
And
for
so
whatever reason, right?
it's yeah. And then
And it's not like it's just this weird coincidence that people just tend to. I wonder if it's because you get that case that then you get roped into family law.
entirely possible. Well, anyway, Mr. Hall decided to retire and close that firm, and so some of us decided to go off on the rest of the attorneys decided to go off on as a group. But the other two attorneys were criminal law attorneys, and I was doing more civil litigation, and that just wasn't working. I was like, I need an assistant that can actually help me with discovery, because otherwise I could do exactly one civil litigation case at a time, because if I do discovery, I can't do anything else.
Fair enough.
And so when I saw a post in the family law group about the soft divorce program, I was like, well, if I'm going to continue doing any family law cases, I want that. That's how I think they should be handled. And so I want to know more about this program. And so I ended up going to the training that you offered in Dallas, October?
Was it
in October last year?
October, right?
Yeah, November.
October,
I think
November?
it was October. Oh, it was November?
Was it November? Brenda says it was November.
Okay, so that's November.
Brenda would know.
Brenda's always right, so yeah.
And everything that you were saying was stuff that I agreed with and I was on board with. And so got in the front door on that and realized that I couldn't stay where I was anymore. And that was kind of hard to be able to be like, no, I don't wait until I start making money. I cut that tie now and go. And I think that's my biggest problem, is that paralysis of indecision.
Paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. And it's just like, no, I need to get here, or I need to get here before I can do that. And it's like, at the end of the day, remembering that it's never the perfect time to do anything. You just have to do it. And so I went home, actually we did a lot right there in the conference room. I got the name registered with the Secretary of State. We bought the first set of website address names, and then went home and finished it off. I got my EIN. I started opening my bank accounts. I changed my contact information with the state bar, and it was just kind of like everything. I mean, aside from a couple snags with Chase Bank, just trying to get accounts set up properly because I didn't fill out a form right, or I didn't do something. Just getting all that set up, it was like, aside from that, everything just kind of fell into place. And then it just worked out that the owner of the firm I'd gone into also felt like it wasn't working, and so we ended up parting ways formally on January 1st. And so I moved within 48 hours. I had everything in the dining room of the house I'm living in, and now it's my office. And it was just like everything fit in there perfectly, and it's great. And I mean, I switched my calendar. I got on Clio, and I love Clio. And this isn't an endorsement or anything, but I love case management.
If you are going to use Clio, we're going to put that link, because I think we get $10 or something. So
yay, $10.
Help us fund the. So if we get 100 people that sign up, we still haven't paid for this episode of the podcast.
But going from not having case management software to having case management software, it was an unbelievable transition. Even just making that decision kind of changed how I administer my practice. And then I realized I have way too many cases, and so the focus became finishing out effectively as many cases as possible, so that I could really give effective care to the cases I still have open. And then I realized I can't answer my own phone, and I was very, very strongly encouraged to be like, no, you need to hire someone. And I ended up, a former client also, we worked on her divorce. She was like, we ended up playing in the same pool league, and she was talking to me about how she needed a job, and I was like, yeah, I got to hire an assistant. And she was like, I need a job. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so we talked about it. I was like, this is what we need. And she was like, well, my experience is in sales. I was like, hey.
This is where you're talking about hiring former clients. This is where the editor flashes the picture of the Brenda. Brenda was a former client.
I remember.
At the time, we were always joking like, you would be the best paralegal we ever possibly could have. You're so organized and like just great. And then all of a sudden, we hired her. Hey Jennifer, can you summon Brenda?
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
Hey guys, did someone call? What's up, Buttercup?
So now I burned my story because we told it on the break of John Mulaney putting multiple. It's not on. What's up, Buttercups? It's his favorite meal that he's ever told.
Was it What's Up, Pussycat?
What's up, Pussycat? Yeah.
What's up, Buttercup?
Yeah. What's up, Pussycat? Apparently, after 10 What's up, Pussycats, people lose their mind. So if you should
try it
we'll
out.
put the link. It's hilarious. So what were we going to talk to you about? Because actually it wasn't quite so.
Hiring
Yes. So hiring a former client.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how.
So that's how we met at like the best part of my life.
The worst part of me.
Well, you know what?
It
was good. It was good meeting Dana. When I did, I just met him a little too late. 17th attorney I interviewed to handle my divorce.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was 17.
17.
And at the moment I heard that, I'm like, I'm not taking this case.
Yeah. I was like, well, like really, like I had just heard so much through other attorneys, like, I wasn't wanting to take his retirement and my ex's retirement, and I was trying to get through this, like keeping my son's mental health, in mind, that we would have to work together, and so I didn't want to do anything that was going to, turn that into a disaster. And like Dana said all the right things, like really he was great, his soft divorce philosophy, but I was just so afraid at that point that I didn't end up hiring him at that time. But
No, you hired the bulldog.
I hired the hammer. Yeah, not the Texas hammer.
I was going to say, Jim Butler?
Not
I didn't know he did divorces.
we gotta make that clear. That's probably copyrighted. Not the hammer, the bulldog. We'll go with that. Yeah. So
A bulldog type.
yeah. And
But I know that guy actually, and he's an okay attorney. I mean, he's fine for an attorney, but it's
the approach.
the approach. And he's a nice person. I like him I like him personally. I like a lot of those attorneys personally, like on a personal level. I just fundamentally disagree with
The approach.
and it's not even necessarily like their fault. I mean, that's how a lot of people think you're supposed to do it, and it's the cliche. And I'm like, it's you're living in the past, man. Like, it's not. And the judges see right through it. It's really impressive to the clients, and maybe in front of a jury, maybe you can convince a jury with that stuff, maybe, but usually not.
But how often does a family law case go to a jury
Hardly
trial?
ever. And it should. This is the S word, right? There's the S word, should, and the F word, fair. I realize that the F word that you really should focus on is fine. It's fine. Can you do that? Or like, it's fine. If you can get to it's fine. It's fine is it's fine because it's in the margin of error. There's always a margin of error with this stuff. And if you're going to settle, like if you have to have everything absolutely maximized and you're willing to compromise nothing, like sorry for the terrible life you're going to live, because if all I have to do is open your eyes to everything else you're sacrificing. Like if you focus on the money, you better put a dollar amount on how much is it worth that your kids don't hate you for the way that you treated their other parent. And like, oh, you think that's a win? Well, there's going to be abundance at your place, at your house when the kids are there, and there's going to be lack at their other parent's house. You think they're not going to judge you both for that? How come you didn't? How come you let our other parent take advantage of you? How come you took advantage of my other parent? Really? And You think the jury, the 12 people that are sitting in that box over there during your trial, you think that's who you're really for? And by the way, jury trials used to exist in the 90s, and most kids never got to read the transcript because that's all that there is. Now, the internet exists. It's always going to be there, and not just them, all of their friends, the moment that they think it, within 20 seconds, will have it in their hand, magically. Like this magical, where's my device? I'm losing my phone. Like, if only there was something in some device that you could magically have all the answers to every question that you could ever think of, and magically have, like, God's omniscient point of view. At least if there was a camera in the room, it's here, and you can summon it within 10 seconds like it's magic. That exists. So you think that the jury is the 12 people in the box? Really? How old are your kids? 5? Yeah. Well, they're not going to understand that now. No. But next week when they're 8 years old and their friend is the first one that has a phone as an 8-year-old. Oh, wait, no. Kids actually have phones at 5 and 4 and 3 and 7, and they have them at elementary school, and they're going to pull up this stuff and show it to your kid. That's where you want them to see this. And by the way, they're not going to necessarily watch the whole trial. They're just going to watch this horrible little excerpt. Like, that one little snippet when we're sitting there through your deposition that you weren't afraid of. But guess what? In that thing that just went right by you through that deposition, 3 days later, or you come back later or whatever, or you're finally at the trial, and if you force me to go to trial, I'm going to freaking crush you because you've made me do it. I offered you outs over and over and over again. But if we're in trial, I'm going to take that snippet, and that's going to be there. And guess what? Your kids' friends are going to present them at elementary school or junior high or high school or college or in their 20s. Your jury is not the 12 people in the box, you fool. Your jury is your children, and even more important, your own subconscious, you idiot. You're the one that has to live with this, and despite your self-righteous bravado, you're a fool, and you're going to regret this. And not only are you going to keep the harm that you're going to suffer while going through it, you're going to make a permanent scar inside of your mind, your heart, your spirit, and your soul in having to go through all of this crap. And it's going to be something you can't recover from, and your story about yourself is going to be so warped that you're going to be forever damaged by it. Either that, or you can, out of wisdom, craft your story right now to rectify this situation and take the generous gift that the Palmer Law Group, with their brand of soft divorce and healthy divorce, is offering you a way out of this, and that we don't have to ruin the present with the things that have happened in the past, and you don't have to ruin your future with things that have happened in your past or any of that stuff, because the real gift and what we really do here is end the fighting, not increase it. Let's put it all behind us.
So the philosophy makes a difference. I think that on some level, some of the people I went to law school with were shying away from courtroom practice because they just didn't want to fight with people just to fight with people. And I feel like the profession loses out on that because you lose some really good lawyers who could help develop really good case law, through the process, that just don't want to deal with the nonsense. It's like my little sister is currently running for mayor for a small town here in Texas, and her husband is her campaign manager. And he always says that politics would be great if it weren't for the politics. It's like, I feel like in some ways it's the same thing with law. It's like practicing law would be great if it weren't for some lawyers. And it's unfortunate.
Trial practice is actually about giving a good and clear presentation to the judge and keeping track of the big picture. Really, a trial is all about the preparation. Whether or not you're going to win that case based on how well and what you've prepared ahead of time. It's if you've done it properly, assuming that there's the budget. One of the real problems with going to trial is massively expensive. In Depp versus Heard, they're spending millions of dollars, both of them. And Amber Heard was supposedly getting these $100,000 a month payouts to $7 million or something, something along those lines. I'm not sure exactly what the exact specifics of are. And she was pledged to donate that to some charities. And then when the suit happened, she stopped making the donation. I'm like, yeah, because this case, I assure you, is costing her probably $100,000 a month. I'm looking at it and seeing the preparation, and I know the levels of what is a $5,000 a month case, what is a $35,000, $40,000, what's a $50,000, what's a $100,000 a month type of case, and then the level of preparation. And when you're seeing they're doing a lot of depositions, there's video depositions, and it's the how much did it cost to take those depositions. And at a deposition, you're paying your attorney, you're paying an attorney and a paralegal to be at every deposition at a minimum, and possibly multiple attorneys, just depending on who the deponent is. And then you have a videographer and a court reporter. It's not uncommon for a deposition to cost your side, if you're the one taking the deposition, for it to cost $15,000, maybe $20,000, depending on what the preparation is. And they're having person after person after person after person. In addition, at this trial, they have viewed those depositions. They have edited and pulled out the parts and things that they want out of those depositions. Yeah. That's at least doubles the price again. So you're at like $40,000, $50,000. And if they're doing with the number of depositions, if they had $500,000 on Johnny Depp's side just in dealing with depositions and preparing that evidence for trial, to me, I'm like, I see where that money is spent. I understand that, and I understand that level of preparation. And if you're really going to do something like that, I think the interesting thing about the Depp versus Heard trial is it's probably a necessary trial, because if Johnny Depp's allegation is true and Amber Heard has done what she has done, then she just simply cannot retract that. It's too public, and the whole case is about reputation. And maybe the jury can come back. There's a big weakness in Johnny Depp's case is because he's suing her over defamation after the divorce was done. And the only reason that anything about the divorce or the truth is because it's a defamation claim. And the defamation happened after the divorce was done. Otherwise, this would be in the context of the divorce itself. And she further defamed him again, at least that's the allegation, but didn't mention him by name, but said, I'm the face of being a victim of
yeah, but I think
domestic abuse.
If I remember correctly, there is case law to show that it has to be, like, if she wants to get away with that, it has to be that she's been in multiple relationships, and it has to be very clear that it's it can't be very clear that it's him that she's referring to.
Well,
yeah.
Could they be doing that? Like her side be trying to prove that by she was with Elon and someone else.
It's not Elon, it's her father. The angle that they're actually going off of, at least, and I've watched the first 3 days of the trial, and I've watched the first day, I've watched 2 days, full days and a half of the third actual day of trial with the other witnesses. And then Johnny Depp came in the second week, and I've watched his full first day and about an hour and a half of his testimony after that. By the end of this week, and today's Friday, this is the end of, as we're filming this, is the end of the second week, and I will, by probably Sunday night, catch up. I'm watching it at double speed, and I get to fast forward through the 15-minute breaks here and the lunch break and things like that. The recordings are about 7 to 8 hour long recordings, like I'm watching Sky News' feed. We will probably do select excerpts and comment on the actual trial, and we'll either do that probably as I'm caught up to where we need to be, just depending on the timing. But right now I'm basically rushing through it in any free time, like I'm listening to it in the shower or like when I'm at different times of the day, just trying to catch up. But anyway, it's a very interesting thing. I mean, clearly it's a court of public opinion case, and people are going to put too much stock in whatever the jury comes back at, especially if the jury comes back on we wanted to give it to this, or especially if it's against Johnny. It's going to be that, well, we wanted to give it to Johnny, but because of it's not purely defamation, but yeah, she did Johnny wrong and something like that, but people are going to think the court of public opinion is not going to see it for the elements of the offense, which is always the risk of a jury in any trial, is that in a court of public opinion case, the jury is the public, right? And that public is certainly not going to say, well, it's all about defamation and this and that. They're going to think, oh, Johnny was right and Amber was wrong, or Amber was right and Johnny was wrong. It depends on who comes out. It's like they're going to declare one of them is a winner and one of them is a loser, and they're going to think that the winner is now absolved and gets the Hollywood career, and the loser doesn't. And it judged based on that. That's actually not what the verdict is. The verdict actually is something different. But people are going to look at it like a football score of like more points, you yes or no, like that means you're right and you win. And they're going to extrapolate and interpolate all of these wrong conclusions out of it.
I feel like this might be the kind of first big profile case in a while where that's the case, because I feel like
I think it's the biggest case since Simpson.
Well, I feel like the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Rittenhouse, yeah, but I think it's bigger than Rittenhouse because Rittenhouse was famous from the case and because of the case, and it was a big element. But these two are famous, and Johnny Depp, especially since Pirates. There's a lot of testimony of like, hey, how did your life change after the first Pirates movie? And he was like, oh, it was like I can't even go out in public anymore. And he goes, I hide and stay in the hotels and have to go in the back ways and like. Because anything, it turns into something else, and it was all because of that first Pirates movie. It was like he was like regular famous, and there was some of that, but he could go out in public until that first Pirates movie, and then it was.
So I guess what I was saying was not so much that this is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was bigger. My point was more along the lines of the public had their mind made up. Like if you were watching anything, I'd say a very small percentage of the public actually's mind was changed by the jury verdict in Kyle Rittenhouse. I feel like a majority of people either believed that he hadn't done anything wrong because they waited for more information, or you had people that were like, no, he was wrong, he's guilty, and the jury's wrong. Like with some of the other kind of high profile cases that have come out, you have a lot of people that just don't, they're like, the jury is wrong. And if the jury comes back with the wrong verdict, then there's going to be riots. Like, I can't remember, I don't think it was the police officers in George Floyd. I think it was one of the other cases where they came out and the defendant.
George Floyd was
created a lot of riots.
Right, I was actually going to say there was another one where they were expecting, maybe it was Rittenhouse, where they were expecting riots because the defendant was acquitted, and there wasn't. Yeah. But they were prepared for him.
Right.
But there were still plenty of people speaking out about how that the jury came to the wrong verdict. And I feel like with this one, there are a lot more people that just want to know what happened.
Right.
And so I feel like there will be more, like you said, there will be more.
The jury is out much more in this case than ever. And I think even in OJ, because I remember OJ well, I was in high school at the time.
Oh, me too.
And which, by the way, that also invokes Norm Macdonald because he was constantly.
I remember when the verdict for OJ came out, it was like, I was in high school and kids were like going through the hall, juice is loose, juice is loose. Like,
I don't remember that part.
Oh, at my high school, that's what was going on. It was insane.
All I remember was.
Were you fifth grade?
God, it must have been.
Yeah.
I remember the jokes like.
If it doesn't fit, you have to quit.
Yes.
I remember that.
That's Johnny Cochran, right?
Oh, yeah.
They remembered the rhyme. And Norm Macdonald actually told a good story of this. I'll tell Norm's version because I didn't see the actual jury. He goes, they spent 2 weeks on blood evidence. And there was one of the jurors who was interviewed afterwards, and they go, so, but what about all that blood evidence? And the juror goes, everybody got blood.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
But years.
And he goes, but she remembered the rhyme. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. So we acquitted.
Oh yeah.
Right? I assure you, I can take a glove off of my hand, and then that glove won't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How hard is that? Like,
well, I just started golfing, and I'm terrible, by the way, terrible. But I got a golf glove, and I swear it takes forever. It takes some effort to get that on.
You know that O.J. Simpson actually plays a lot of golf, and so when you're on the
all
golf,
golfers are murderers.
when you're on
I'm just kidding.
when you're on the golf course, you have to drink apple juice because O.J. will kill you.
Okay, that was covered.
When I was working at the Crescent, he came into the courtyard, and we had this really high-end store. I'm not going to name their name. A very high-end, like boutique-y, like special, like they fitted everything. Jerry Jones's family would shop there, kind of thing. Extremely expensive. I'm talking like $500,000 for just a pair of socks, kind of stuff. And
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So anyway,
They made of diamonds?
yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, he came into my restaurant and into the bar area, and this is the first time I ever seen anything like this. But the owner of that store came into, because he acted like he owned our restaurant. He was just like that. He comes prancing into the restaurant and looked at him straight in the face like, "You are not welcome in there. You're not welcome in this area. You need to leave. Go. No one wants you here."
What?
And I was
Why?
like, it was after
After the
OJ.
trial.
It was
Was it
years.
after the
It was
civil
years.
trial too,
Oh.
probably?
It was in the 2000s.
Oh.
Because I started working there in 2003. So this was probably like 2006, 7. And I had
Wow.
never seen anything like it. He told him, "You need to get out of here. You're not
And
welcome."
did he leave?
He did.
Okay.
I think that
I
it
guess.
was right before, all the stuff went down in Vegas with him,
Oh, wow, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, I was in 5th grade, and then Selena
Yeah.
died. So
Yeah, no, I
Selena
remember
took over.
Selena.
Yeah, Selena.
That's
took
where
over
we
in
were.
I was
Corpus.
a freshman in high school.
I was
when Selena died.
because I was in Corpus. I lived in
remember that.
Corpus Christi, and so
Oh,
we
okay.
got put on lockdown.
Any of y'all remember the
Oh, wow.
Rodney King riots too, after that case? I think that's like I'm probably the oldest out of us, right? Yeah.
Rodney King was early late
like-
80s, early 90s.
Late 80s, maybe.
I was
or
out of the
early
country.
90s. And it was the first that I'd ever heard about something like that. But I mean, obviously, like there was stuff going on in the 60s and all that. Kent State and all that. Before, like Kent State was before my time. But Rodney King, like I was a kid, but had heard about it and remember the riots. And I remember like
read
watching
about it.
videos and stuff. And then OJ was like the first where I was like, I think I was, I remember it was going on like during my 11th grade year, so I must have been about 16.
I mean, the things that I remember as a kid is the David Koresh
Oh, I
in
remember that
Waco.
too.
Like that was
Yep.
like on TV for
I
days.
forget we're in Texas, so you guys
Hey,
know.
federals, you might want to just have some patience and wait it out instead of, I don't know, causing the death of.
The entire compound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Maybe, maybe
my-
wait it
my
out.
middle school-
It's not like you guys didn't have like, I don't know, supplies and then everything else. Like, how long could they have waited? If you're there a year, be there a year, whatever.
So my middle school was, I want to say 10 miles from the hotel where Selena was shot.
Oh.
And
Is that how
so
Selena died?
when
I don't
all,
know.
what?
Oh, yeah.
She was shot by her manager.
Manager.
Believe it or not.
Who
I
was
rem-
stealing
I remember
from
that now.
her.
Believe it or
Stealing
not,
from her, yeah.
I, as a young classical music and rock metal enthusiast, was not very familiar with Selena's
I didn't know who
repertoire.
she was until after the movie came out.
Oh yeah.
I
Me
did,
too.
however, know that she had been shot, and I was like, oh, a Tejano musician named Selena was killed, and she's from Corpus because it was in the paper, and it was a very, very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the middle school was put on lockdown
Oh, wow.
because of the active shooter situation.
How far was it from you?
It's like 5 miles away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, we also got put on lockdown for chemical when the refineries would have an accident because we were 5 miles away from that too. But yeah,
So move to Corpus.
Why
that's
would you
what
be
I'm
on-
saying.
Why wouldn't they put you on? Get the hell out of there! Hey, let's lock them in the school!
Well-
Hey, put this mask of poison on.
they're gonna turn them all into Spider-Man.
No, that was kind of like a really big deal. And then, she had a huge funeral procession.
I remember
and
that.
Yeah.
she's actually buried.
I
So
know she was like well loved.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and
The
she
movie's
was-
great about her
I've seen some
story.
interviews of her in recent
Maybe
weeks,
that
but
Lobamba?
no,
Selena.
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 J-Lo.
Wow.
Greg
Wow.
laughed.
But she's actually
I'm
buried.
just trying to crack the camera guys up. And I'm good.
She's buried right around the corner from my sister. They're in the same cemetery. And initially, it was just this really tasteful headstone that, they give you the temporary one that had Selena Quintanilla Perez. And then I think there was a headstone initially that had her full legal name on it with the birth and death years. But then, I don't know, we were visiting Monica and we went by, because we drove the outer ring to get out, and they had changed the headstone and now it had her signature, like her logo, instead of her legal name. And then we went by maybe a year or two later, and there's this now huge bronze like impression of her face on top of her grave, and it's like roped off and stuff, and it was just like, I like the first one better, but they've also got a statue of her down on the shoreline.
There's going to be a giant pyramid with a picture with a sphinx with her face on.
There's a statue of her downtown, and every year that we have
Too soon?
every year we have hurricanes or major storms, somebody goes and puts a life jacket on the statue.
Oh, wow.
It's really kind of cool. Where was
Wow.
Christy?
Well, Dana, I know you have some exciting things coming up for you. You're
Ooh.
starting healthymarriage.com.
Yeah.
But
So you want to do our first podcast of healthymarriage.com?
Sure, I'm not
Right.
married.
And we're going to do it right after this, and we'll see you in episode 11. That's going to wrap 10, right? 10,
That's it.
yes. And subscribe,
smash that like button.
Yes.
smash it.
Smash.
And
Wait,
the little
I didn't
bell,
do it.
right?
Smash.
The little bell to
yes,
subscribe.
Is there a bell with your alerts?
Notifications.
And sign up at lawyerdana.com. Give us your email address so that we can keep in touch with you for forever. We'll notify you of in-person appearances.
And go to
especially-
worthyvision.com so you can learn all about coaching techniques.
And if you want to coach like Denise, worthyvision.com.
Or be coached like Denise.
Be coached like Denise. Actually, depending on how, like maybe a few years from now, you might be one of our instructors.
Hey, that'd be fun.
We like people that are successful, and we will see you,
Done a lot of things wrong along the way, so maybe it will be very helpful.
but less than you would.
Oh, I meant before I met you.
Oh, good. And we will then see you in the next episode.
The Lawyer Dana Podcast.